You're listening to ESQ Resource Radio on the Bets on Media Network.
Good morning and welcome to the ESQ Resource Radio Show. I am your host, Frank Lopo. And today we've got with us Mr. Chris Smith with Sunbelt Business Brokers. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Frank.
How are you today?
I'm doing great.
Excellent, excellent. And what we're going to get into with Chris is he's going to talk about, first and foremost, what a business broker does and how they help somebody. But I think more importantly for the audience is here's an opportunity if you've thought about starting a business, getting into business, working with an existing business, and I think the numbers speak for themselves, and Chris may elaborate on that. Your opportunity of success is enhanced by, I don't know what the percentage is, but quite a bit, buying an existing business and building from that.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Frank. First off, a business broker, we're licensed under the Department of Real Estate, so a business broker needs to be licensed in the state of Arizona. So it's important that you're working with somebody that meets that qualification, because there's several people out there that are touting that, but aren't. So you want to make sure you're working with a true professional, and that's true in any industry. But it's important to know that you're regulated and where you're at. I'm part of Sunbelt Business Brokers, which is a nationwide and international affiliation of business brokers that have been around since 1978. There's 270 offices around the country and close to 4,000 agents. So we're not beginners. We know what we're doing, and we have lots of resources to help a buyer. And that's important, or even help a seller, because in business brokerage, no two deals are exactly the same.
Correct.
So you can imagine, one business that's located inside the sports arena versus the other one that's down on Main Street and that sort of thing. And they may be the same franchise, but they're operated completely different, or one's more on one part of the city versus another. And so the demographics of the business are different, and also every business owner is different. So they run it differently. And the biggest thing that helps with a business transitioning is making sure that the buyer can understand the risks and what the business has done historically. So businesses that don't have good financial information is one of the first obstacles that we have to overcome. And a lot of times, not having good financial information, so a buyer really understands what the business has accomplished in the past, they end up selling for, a lower price. So a well-organized business, or someone that goes out there and really prepares their business for sale and organizes that information so there's some clarity to the buyer, will get more value. And that goes back to your basic investment, where if there's a higher risk, it has to be a lower price to offset that, versus if it's less risky, someone's willing to pay more money for that same return. And that definitely applies in Main Street business sales. So it's important out there that people understand that. So, one, work with a professional. Two, if you're thinking about buying or selling, understand the information you're getting. And then the third thing is understanding that professional should help guide you through the process of the due diligence. Where that goes is, if we don't have good financial information, that doesn't mean it's not a good business.
Right.
I mean, I'd probably say that 50 to 60% of all businesses in our area probably don't have good financial information. But the purpose of that is just to pay taxes. That's not really to tell you what the cash flow of the business or what the historical stuff of how it's been operated is. It's telling you, here's why I'm paying a certain amount to the U.S. government and other state agencies each year. And there's a lot of special adjustments you can take for taxes that have really nothing to do with cash flow. Special deductions that help one way or another. So you got to get through that process. And in a way, it's nice to have, someone that has experience with business sales and working with business issues to say, okay, if we don't have that information, we can get that information by going to this source, or we can recreate that and validate it by going there. So in a way, we're a little bit of auditors, but we don't audit, but we help use audit type strategies so the buyer can get some clarity and understand what that value is if the seller doesn't have that. And there's lots of situations, that we see that good businesses sell that we may not have all the information. Recently in our office, we're dealing with, unfortunately, the death of the owner, and now the wife and some other family members that really weren't that involved in the business now have the business asset. It's the single largest asset of the estate. We got to figure out, how do we put this back together? My husband's always handled it. I don't know. And now I got people that are all of a sudden kind of bargain hunters. They're coming in from out of state saying, oh, we'll offer you this for it really quick. And she came to us going, I think they're taking advantage of me. I don't understand what is the real value of my business? I don't understand why these people are so pushy. And I'm saying, well, the fact that they're coming at you so pushy is that they're seeing that there's value there,
Right.
and they're trying to, unfortunately, probably take advantage of the situation a little bit. It's not like you have this white knight that came out of there says, oh, we'll give you $2 million for your husband's business because we just liked him
Right.
so much. They probably know there's probably $4 million worth of value there. And if we give you $2 million today, just, here, just go on your way and,
Right.
and do it. And that's unfortunate, but that's, we're, as business brokers, we're there to help keep that business in place and help get so much of that value out for this widow that, that was their biggest asset, and he's worked so long for that. So
Sure.
it's important that that's there. And unlike other professionals, like an attorney or CPA, a licensed business broker can really talk about what is the value of the business and guide the person, through the entire process, not just do one part of it. So that's kind of where we're unique, and a lot of people don't know the good services that are there. And obviously, like any profession, there's some business brokers that haven't done things always the best way. And so everyone's different, but there's the same in every
Right.
industry, unfortunately.
But it sounds like too, not only working with people looking to buy business, but also sellers looking to, in your case with the widow, that she's left with a situation, she needs to do something. She doesn't want to run the business necessarily,
Right.
and move it on. And then also maybe in counsel with that person of saying, you've got an asset here, and if you can work with us for 6 months, you can make it more valuable just based on getting some of these things in order.
Right. Yeah. If we could be involved in the orderly transition where it's not an urgent thing that, hey, I need to sell right away.
Right.
And they kind of call that exit planning, and there's some other strategies, the transition planning that's out there. But, meeting with a business broker early, and especially this time of the year, because we're coming up on year end, it's a good time for a seller to, when they're analyzing everything, to say, what does my business accomplish? What's my market value? And most good business brokers would be happy to give you, a little bit of an assessment on your business, knowing that down the road, even if you're not selling today, that you're going to know, hey, Sunbelt, they were good guys. They gave us value, a quick valuation of what the market price was. I understand we're not appraisers, but we can tell you, much like a realtor, what are the comps? What is generally,
Sure.
what's my business worth? And we'd be happy to do that. And then, kind of talk to you, because, you may know other people that want to sell, or later on, you're going to know, hey, those guys over at Sunbelt were good people. They gave us, a free assessment, and, we'll go back to them in the future.
Right. And everything is also, I think that's one of the other things you always talk about, is very confidential.
Oh, confidentiality is huge in our business, because for a seller that's looking to sell, no one can really know they're for sale. And that's,
Right.
and that's critical. And it's a real challenge, is because you can't have the key employees know the business is for sale. The landlord can't know, your vendors can't know, for sure. Your customers can't know, because once, someone says, hey, you're not going to be here anymore, there's gonna be somebody else, people start looking at all kinds of, different alternatives.
Right.
And, when you're no longer a going concern, from a legal standpoint, businesses start to treat you different. You don't get renewals, pricing may change. A key employee may get scared off and say, well, now is the time for me really to go over and update my resume and start looking to work for a competitor. And you might not even really truly be wanting to sell. You may just be trying to get some information out there. So that's another thing that a business broker really can do, because we're an off-site third party that can handle phone calls, handle inquiries, qualify, buyers as far as who they are, what's their motivation. We can get confidentiality agreements signed. We can put everything in place and keep it remote. Versus if you're the seller trying to sell the business on your own, you can't put a sign in the door.
Right.
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 And you can't put an ad on the internet and say, here's my address, or here's my email, or here's my website, because people will blab. And
Right.
it's amazing how quick information goes.
Sure.
Especially, we had one seller that called us that was up, especially in a smaller community, when they were up in Flagstaff and they were trying to market their business on their own. And within 3 weeks, he had 4 people come in and say, hey, I hear you're for sale. He's like, where'd you hear that from? And he had advertised on a business listing that was based in London that does a lot of international buyers, for people that are kind of looking to migrate, because he thought his business would be good for an immigrant that was
Wow.
coming in, because it meets the EB-5 or EB-3 visa requirements. Don't quote me on that. I'm not as familiar with those visas, but I know that there's programs
No question, yeah.
that people can come in and buy a business with a certain investment in the United States, and they get an immigration. So if your business kind of can meet those qualifications, you got a huge market of people that want to be in the United States and, know that, hey, I need to buy a business for me, my family, and the group
Right.
so we can all be here. And this business met it. But even that, confidentiality was just breached like that because, Google and those search things, they find, stuff real easy. All
Sure.
you need someone to type in your business name, and next thing you know, bam, it brings up all the stuff that you weren't ready for. So
Right.
confidentiality has to be maintained all the way through to the very end of the transaction. And even then, we've had deals where it's actually closed and sold, but the buyer stays on, the seller stays on through training and a transition program. And it kind of looks like he brought on a new partner. And next thing you know, the seller's trying to take a little more vacation. He's not around as much. The new partner is kind of slowly taking over some stuff in the absence. And over 6 or 8 months, next thing you know, the seller kind of disappears, and everyone goes, "Oh, that it kind of makes sense. He hasn't been around much." And
Right. Transitions very smoothly, and
so we handle those transition plans not just on the sale, but also on how to make it just really, smooth with everyone that may be involved. Because selling like a CPA practice, where it's very sensitive and there's a lot of trust and loyalty that you've had in your CPA, and now to transfer that over to the next person, very quickly, can be scary and say, well, if I'm starting over, where do I want to go? Versus if it's a smooth transition and we've always been there, and now you're just a junior partner helping out, and then you've kind of met each other a couple of times, and next thing you know, the partner retires, and you like the young guy, and he's handled everything, and they get the file, so it can go real well. So we see that in your professionals.
Right. And then is there a big influx now with a lot of these baby boomers retiring and looking to transition their business or move away from their business?
It is amazing right now. And we're talking about Maricopa County, so, specifically, but I think all around the country, especially in the small business communities, we're seeing that about 60% of the businesses here in our area are owned by somebody that's a baby boomer. They're saying in the next 7 years, they don't see themselves continuing to run this company. So they have to transition. So we got about 150,000 small businesses right here in Maricopa County. That's a huge amount of businesses that are going to transition. Now, some of those have internal transition plans. Some of them will go public. Some may just close. But a fair amount of those really need to stay in place for our communities and our employment base and everything like that. And they don't have a good plan other than to say, who's a qualified, buyer that's going to come in and pay me a fair amount for the business and take over and take the next thing. And that's what a business broker does. And it also, it really helps the community, because you don't want to see, the business on the corner close.
No question.
I mean, you lose the employees, you lose the tax revenue for that area. Everything just, the landlord loses the income. Everything that goes into that area to recreate a new business versus maintaining an existing one just is a real blight on, that local economy on a very micro level. So, keeping those businesses in place is very important to stabilize our community, especially right now where, we're starting to get a little bit of a growth that's pattern is happening in our area. We don't want it, but it's still fragile is what I'm hearing from a lot of people. But the nice thing that we're seeing too in the marketplace, we're seeing lenders come back in. We're seeing the SBA, financing business sales again. They're using a 3 multiple on cash flow up to a maximum of the 3 multiple. That's very good for loan amounts.
Very nice.
We're seeing a lot of the smaller banks use the SBA financing, to stimulate their loan portfolio growth. So we're seeing some competition between some small banks that have come into our area. And that's good. I mean, that's healthy. Because most business buyers don't have all the liquidity. So they, if they're going to buy a business that's for $500,000, that's making them $150,000 a year, they don't have $500,000 in cash. I mean, they may have 75 or 100,000, and that's 20%. And with that, there are banks out there that will make a loan for them, under good qualifications.
That's a good start for somebody in the respect. And that's another thing you can help them is direct them into some of those financing opportunities as far as how you can go about owning this business. Here's what some of those requirements are.
Yeah, even though most of the time as a business broker, we're a seller's representative, we got to be incredibly helpful to the buyer. And the seller knows that, though you have to guide the buyer to the finish line. And part of that is, if I only have $100,000 and the business is asking 500, how do we bridge that gap? And we help with negotiations, but we make referrals to banks. We make, recommendations on, seller financing. If the seller needs to finance, what are the marketplace terms and that sort of thing. So, there's a lot of different ways that you can creatively buy a business, whether it be upfront seller financing, earn out scenarios, retention payments, holdbacks, all those things.
Okay. How can someone get a hold of you? Why don't you go ahead and give out your phone information and email and even the website to where people can go check out and see what's out there.
Great. Our website locally is azbizlist.com. So azbizlist.com. On there, you can find all the businesses that we have for sale, and links to other helpful things and ways to contact us. My name is Chris Smith. You can call our office at 602-266-1224. And, my email address is broker@chrismsmith.com is my personal email address. And even if you just have a question and you're like, you're hearing this radio show and you're saying, Chris, I've always thought about this, or what about that? Send me an email. I'm happy to be helpful.
Right.
I have a passion for this industry, and I want to see, people get good advice. So however I can be helpful, hit me up.
Okay. And then it really is having that professional counsel or direction in order to make this, the successful opportunity you're looking to be, rather than
absolutely
an uphill battle. And you get into those, I didn't agree to that type of information when you're dealing individually. Right. Things.
Right. And we're usually a valuable player on a team. So we work really well with the attorney. We work really well with the CPA and other professionals. I myself am a CPA. I can't be the CPA for the client during the transaction, but that means I speak the language and I can understand that the sale involves many different facets and layers. And one is just making sure you get the best price, but at the end of the day, making sure you keep the most of it.
Sure.
And making sure that however your CPA was working it, we're working with your CPA and making sure that things are done right. Or if there's, special things that have to do in the contract, you get a family attorney, keeping that family attorney and the team together. And I think that's, part of why Sunbelt has got such a great reputation here in the Valley, is that we work well with other professionals, and we prefer that. And we're on that professional basis versus maybe, just a real estate agent that's trying to do business brokers that doesn't have the business acumen that we do.
No question. Because that's the difference between being about the sale and being about the success of the opportunity. And you guys have always shown that being a part of the team to make sure that the individual is getting the very best for them on both sides, both the seller and the buyer, make it work, versus just one. Much like in the law field, it's not someone won and somebody lost. It's just finding some middle ground to make this work for everybody.
The clients have, especially in our situation, a very clearly defined purpose of what they look to achieve. Right. They may be out of work and they need to buy a business, and they want that security to say, hey, I never want to be laid off again. I never want to be fired. I never want to have a boss. I want to be able to be rewarded for my hard work that I generate.
Sure.
A lot of people have that entrepreneurial drive, and they just don't know what that opportunity is. And when you look at the world of business, it can be really overwhelming for a buyer. If you go say, have you thought about a franchise and I want to be in the food industry? There's probably close to 500 franchises. And now you start saying, well, what's the difference between a Jimmy John's versus a Firehouse versus a Subway versus a Blimpie versus a Cousins versus where do I go? And can you negotiate any of these terms? And what is restricted territory? And what's happening with all? A business broker can help guide you through and understand that process. And there's certain franchises that are still growing or have more incentives for growth that are looking at, at different, things that kind of are on sale. So it's good to work with somebody that kind of can see the whole market. And,
sure.
And that's what we're at.
Excellent. And I think that becomes the fact is that a lot of these folks in the audience, being they're veterans and they've working and learning a skill, and now they can come and, one of those things that most business owners seem to always say is, why did I wait till I was in my 40s to start my business? I should have done this when I was 20. And I think we have a lot of those people out there in the audience that could be considering this and maybe doing and working for somebody and learning a field or a trade, or taking the education they got in the military and applying it. And now they can start their own business with it.
And speaking of veterans, there are actually programs out there to really help veterans get into business for themselves that aren't just startup. They're incentives to help a veteran take over an existing business. So I know the SBA has called with the Patriot Express program, which has reduced fees and a reduced down payment for a veteran. I know that certain counties and state organizations, they have grants for veteran programs that you can find out, through the local SCORE organization. SCORE knows a lot of those local grants. So if you have a SCORE agency in your local neighborhood,
Right.
reach out to them, especially as a vet, because they'll be aware of different grants and other programs that'll be there. But, then again, that's coming back to bringing the team together. So if you're looking
Sure.
at, hey, I'm a vet, but I only have $40,000, in, investment potential, but I really need to be making $80,000 or $90,000 a year for my family. Where do I go? There's some programs out there that can help them.
Right.
And
it can be a, not now, but when type of situation of just getting your head wrapped around it, saying, gosh, if you can get these things in place in the next 6 months, 9 months, a year, you'll be in a great position to pull something off or put something together.
Great. Absolutely.
Excellent. 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 Well, as always, it's great information, and I really appreciate you sharing. And you also touched on a little bit about being a CPA in your other life, which I know that's another passion you have with the numbers and helping people. Just go ahead and give us some info on I know that the tax season's over, but just going to start grinding up here. And
we're this is the time of year for us, especially for me at Sunbelt. The CPA goes hand in hand, staying up to date and being licensed and knowing what's going on, because there's so much that's been changing, in the tax world, and continues to change. And we're watching to see what Congress will do between now and the end of the year. Most likely nothing, unfortunately, because there's a couple provisions that are out there that need to be extended once again. So, I think, the talk for the next couple of weeks is probably going to be this immigration thing that's coming to life today. Hopefully that's not too much of a distraction, because there's some real work that, with some tax law that needs to be done, but they may do it after year end and make it retroactive. But the important thing I would say is, if you're a small business owner, or you kind of have a little bit more of a complex business, or tax situation, between now and the end of the year, it's good to get an estimate. Talk to a CPA, talk to a professional advisor, and say, here's where I'm at. What can I be doing? And we call that tax planning.
Sure. But
there's some things that you need to do before the end of the year to take advantage of. And in Arizona now, especially, we have a lot of tax credits that are available. Speaking of veterans, there's a military family relief fund credit that's out there that, most people know about, like the public and private school programs where, I donate $400 to my local public school, and that can go to extracurricular activities, and I get to take that off of, the tax that I would pay, or it counts as tax I paid in as a tax credit for Arizona. And, oh, by the way, it qualifies as a donation for the IRS. So that $400 donation that I'm making actually saves me, depending upon your tax bracket for the IRS, it may save me, $440 in taxes. So it's an immediate investment where, you get a quick return.
Sure.
So, but Arizona has several new credits that are out there that, that you should meet with, your professional advisors and say, am I taking advantage of that? We have tax clients that are, actually making a couple $1,000s a year just using those tax credits. But some of them have to be done before December 31st. Some of them, you have to have a certain receipt. And you have to investigate which organization is going to make sure that you're making the donation to a registered, qualified organization that meets those criteria. And there are some that are advertising they are, and unfortunately they're not. It's that time of year where you see some scams. So,
excellent. All right, Chris, why don't you go ahead and give out your information again, how people can contact you. And
sure. Chris Smith with Sunbelt Business Advisors, 602-266-1224. Happy to give me a call, and I'll be, however I can be helpful to you.
Excellent. Well, we really appreciate you being a guest on the show. And as always, that 30 minutes goes very quickly, and great information that you shared with the audience. And again, I encourage you that if you have any questions, reach out to Chris. And then also, because Sunbelt is a nationwide company, don't think in terms of he can only help me in Arizona. Anywhere out there, he can connect you with right people if need be, or work with you through the process.
And Frank, I just want to thank you for everything you're doing, in our local community for the vets and everything like that. You're doing a lot of hard work, and I know some of it goes unrecognized, but there are people out there that really appreciate what you're doing. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And we'll be back with Rebecca Botchan. Thank you very much.
Are you or someone you know looking for a new job or career? The Vets on Media family would like to invite you to the National Career Fair in Phoenix on November 17th from 11 until 2 p.m. This free job fair will be held at the Phoenix Airport Marriott Hotel, located at 1101 North 44th Street, Phoenix. This is your chance to meet some of the top employers in the Phoenix area face-to-face. Get ready to jumpstart your new career at the National Career Fair in Phoenix, November 17th from 11 until 2 p.m. at the Phoenix Marriott Hotel, 1101 North 44th Street, Phoenix. For more information, visit ncfairs.com/Phoenix. Again, that's ncfairs.com/Phoenix.
Break a 19. How about that bandit? You got them ears on, son?
Have you ever wanted to be a truck driver? If so, pay attention. If not, pay attention anyway. Southwest Truck Driver Training offers everything you need to get started. You can get hired before you begin training. They've got GI Bill approved training facilities, day, night, or weekend programs to fit your busy schedule. And if you have any questions, no sweat. They've got veteran supportive campuses with veterans on staff to serve you. And on top of that, they have lifetime job placement assistance. Put the pedal to the metal. Call Southwest Truck Driver Training today.
Everyone's going to need an attorney at some point in their life. I'm no different. Hey everyone, it's James from Vets On. Whether it was my last will and testament before deployment or my ongoing custody battle for my children during my divorce, I needed help, so I lawyered up. If you need help, I urge you to contact Capstrom Law Firm. Capstrom Law Firm in Springfield, Missouri services clients throughout the state in criminal law, personal injury, and family law. With over 13 years practicing law, Tom Capstrom understands both law and court procedures and how stressful they can be. Let Tom Capstrom Law Firm and his dedicated staff take the stress and worry out of a difficult situation by calling him today. We feel so strong about the work that Tom and his staff are doing that he'll be a monthly guest on the show. Tom is a veteran and a listener, for God's sake, so you know the guy is solid and will fight for you. Give Tom a call today by calling 417-864-0552 or email Tom at capstromlaw.com. And don't forget to tell him that Vets On sent you.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertising.
If you or someone you know is looking for a new job or career, you need to visit the pros. National Career Fairs at ncfairs.com. National Career Fairs hosts over 300 career fairs a year nationwide. The events are free and give you the perfect chance to meet some of the top employers in your area face-to-face. To find the nearest career fair to you, visit ncfairs.com. Again, that's ncfairs.com. What are you waiting for?
You're listening to ESQ Resource Radio on the Vets On Media Network.
Well, welcome back to the ESQ Resource Radio Show. I'm your host, Frank Lempo, and with us for the next segment is Rebecca Botjan. Becky, correct?
Right.
Excellent. Excellent. And what Becky does is she provides legal forms or paralegal documents for people who choose to do something, whether it be a bankruptcy on their own. And do you help them with the preparation of the paperwork, or you just provide them the paperwork?
I prepare the paperwork for them.
Okay.
I provide the documents for them. I give them a questionnaire so that I can have all the information. And
Right.
then for bankruptcy, for example, I prepare the petition and their schedules and put it all together correctly, put all the information where it needs to be, and then they take it to the court and file it.
Right. And that's always the paperwork is, the most important piece of the whole transaction.
Right.
And the more prepared you are from that standpoint, in theory, the less problems you're going to have once you get in front of the trustee
Right.
with your bankruptcy issues from that
Right.
standpoint.
And when you just start looking at those documents, if you're not familiar with them, they can be very overwhelming.
Right. And so as they fill out the questionnaire, so do they come in for a consultation with you, or is it done through the phone, or how do you?
It depends on the person.
Okay.
I can either meet with them and we can go over the questionnaire, and I ask them to bring documents with them.
Right.
So it depends on how the person feels comfortable. If they would like to have me email them the questionnaires beforehand, and
Right.
then they have that to look over, or whether they want me to bring it with me, and then we go over it together.
Okay.
I can't give them legal advice, but I can get them just more familiar with the process. And bankruptcy is a scary thing for people going into it. And it just talking to someone who has at least seen it on many different levels, it puts them at ease.
Sure.
Sure.
Well, no question, because it becomes, again, you've, from the stress level of you getting to that point is one piece of the issue. And now once you determine a direction or a path of what you're going to do with it, is another step in itself. And you're always, again, the thing, much like in the firm I work for, it's that people are always hopeful to the end that they're going to fix it without having to do this.
Right.
That they're going to get the bonus, or the job's going to come through, and all that stuff works out. In some cases, unfortunately, people wait so long that when they were unemployed, they had all these financial issues. Now's the time to take action, rather than getting employed, trying to get yourself back on your feet. And then now you limit some of your options in some of those things.
Right.
And so it's a good thing. So how many people do you meet with that then decide to just hold off, or most people, once they sit down with you pretty well, just decided, here, I'm moving forward?
Right. Once they get to the point of meeting with me, it's pretty much decided that it's Chapter 7 bankruptcy is how they want to proceed.
Okay.
Sometimes they've talked to other attorneys. Sometimes they've talked to debt people like you that have helped them try and work it out with the creditors.
Right.
But generally, once they get to me, sometimes we'll have a phone conversation, and they will decide that they need an attorney, or that they need to seek other options. It just depends. But once we meet, it's usually
they're pretty well.
Right.
And again, most people, we work with a bankruptcy attorney, and his philosophy is, hey, if you haven't filed bankruptcy by the time you're 40, you're not trying.
Oh my God.
and from a standpoint of, as I tell people, that the part of this deal is you're a risk taker. You're willing to, take that chance. And so it's not always the negative thing you think it is in a situation. It's just part of life, part of the deal. Get on with it.
It's not a failure on the person's fault or anything like that, because there's so many reasons that people file bankruptcy.
Right.
Because it can be medical. It can be that they did get into credit card debt. It could be that they got into credit card debt while they were unemployed.
Right.
You just never know with the person. And
right.
Credit card debt sneaks up on you so fast with the interest rates and things like that. It can.
Oh, sure. It's overwhelming. And as you get that credit card that has a $20,000 limit, and you think in your mind, I'll never spend that much money. And then, 2 years, 3 years down the road, you're thinking, hey, could I raise that limit to 30,000 now? Because I'm maxed out at this point. And,
with 20% interest. So.
No question. and there's no feasible way making a minimum payment that in your lifetime you're going to pay that back. It's just as you do the math on that, and that's the unfortunate part of is what people do. But that's what a lot of people fund their business, and using credit cards to do those kind of things. So so it's never really, and we've never come across a client that was just financially derelict and they purposefully did all this. It's just circumstances present themselves, and you deal with it from that standpoint.
Right.
And so what goes into, is there any other areas that you work with other than, say, the bankruptcy of Chapter 7?
I also do estate planning.
Okay.
I do wills, financial powers of attorneys, healthcare power of attorneys, and living wills.
Okay.
Those usually are a package deal. Once people want a will, they usually want the rest of it.
Right.
I'm sure that veterans know as well as anyone that circumstances change immediately, and you just need to be sure that who's going to be taking care of your finances.
No
and
question.
Making your healthcare decisions, and should something happen to you, you want to let your family know what your wishes are.
No question. And I think it becomes one of those things that you are diligent and you get it done. It's the updating it, especially in a will and some of that stuff that really become the concern for people, when unfortunately that person passes on and you find out that the ex-wife is the one that has all the control of the estate. And that certainly wasn't where everything wanted to be, but you can't fix it at that point in time. It is what it is.
Right. And if you're only changing your personal representative, if you've just gotten a divorce and you only have a will and she's only listed in there once as your personal representative, that is an easy fix.
Right.
It can be, a less than $50 document to just get that changed. You don't have to redo your entire will. You can just change your personal representative.
Right. Okay. And I think that's important for people to know. So it's not some complex, got to go through everything and redo it all. It's just really updating the circumstances based on the change.
Right.
And when you have those significant life events that change, that's when you need to make sure you update things as best you can.
Exactly.
And but it becomes one of those out of sight, out of mind. But the consequences, become, and it's not necessarily, it can't be undone, but now you have to go through the legal system in order to correct it.
Right.
And that costs money, and it becomes heartache and stress, and depending on the situation, it's a lot of craziness ensues.
Right. It could be a matter of informal probate versus formal probate, which is thousands of dollars and thousands of hours of attorney's fees and not getting the assets back to you as quickly as if you had just had a simple will made.
Right. And so, Becky, what is your background that led you into helping folks do this?
Well, I started working as a paralegal just out of college.
Okay.
I actually kind of stumbled upon it. I was a marketing major and a business major, but I didn't want to do door-to-door sales.
Right.
And at that point, that was kind of my option, and I needed health insurance. So my friend said, well, my law firm's hiring. Do you want to come work with me? And I was like, well, I guess if it has health insurance, and now 10 years later, I'm still doing it. I just really enjoy helping people, and with the documents, I found that I'm pretty good at it.
Right. And so now you're on your own. Are you doing paralegal work outside of it?
Yes, I still work for an attorney in the morning.
Okay.
And in the afternoon, I do my legal document business.
Excellent. Yep. Excellent. And you've been doing it for about a year on your own with the business?
Right. I became certified as a legal document preparer through the Supreme Court of Arizona last November.
Okay.
That was a long process. I actually took the test in August, and then they have to do a background test or background screening and make sure that I am who I am. And then I became a document preparer last year.
Okay. Excellent. And so with the bankruptcy, so how do you get clients? How do they come to you to find you? Is it a lot of word of mouth? How do you market your business?
It's word of mouth. I occasionally put ads on Craigslist, and I also have a website that people find me on, and I do networking as well.
Okay. Well, speaking of that, why don't you go ahead and give out your contact information and your email address and also your website. So anybody out there that needs to contact you, they have a way to do that.
Sure. My LLC is named Legal Documents Made Simple. My website is www.legaldocsmadesimple.com. And my email address is legaldocsmadesimple@gmail.com.
Okay. And the key to that is it becomes very affordable for folks from a standpoint, just like for us, as we get clients that come in to us, and because of their financial distress, they're not in a position to pay $2,500 to $3,000 to an attorney to do all this work.
Right.
So maybe a good alternative for them, at least to check and to consider how you could help them from that standpoint, and provide some insight to them. And I'm sure, much like in our business, you do a lot of personal counseling as the situation permits with people, and just
avoiding legal advice again,
right.
But it's still setting their mind at ease,
right,
that this isn't the end of the world.
No question.
And the U.S. trustee did set legal document preparer fees. So the petition for any legal document preparer in the state of Arizona, and I don't know outside of Arizona,
right,
is $200 to have your petition done.
Okay.
That's set by the U.S. trustee. So, if you want to look around for a better deal, I'm not, that's pretty much set. Right. And then there's court filing fees of, I believe they're $306 right now for a Chapter 7. There are waivers that you can fill out, but that depends on the judge if they want to grant that or not.
Right. Right. And it just becomes, more extra stuff that you got to go through
Right.
and hopefully the as the judge is looking at things, he's not taking it personally. He's just, hey, here's what it is. Here's a situation.
Right. They look at the facts, not at your face to decide.
Right. No question. Well, and that's a good thing. And I just think that, again, that becomes a valuable tool for folks as an alternative, just so they can, as we tell people, Chapter 7 is the least expensive, quickest way to recovery, because that's really how you got to look at it is where are you going? What are you going to do? And not worry about what had happened, because it's over with. It's done.
Right. Because when you file Chapter 7, and generally if you're coming to me, you don't really have assets. So it'll be a pretty quick average, maybe 90 days before you get your discharge. And you could be done then. Every case is different, of course. But it could be 90 days and you have your discharge and you're done.
Well, yeah. And that becomes part of that, of you sort of walking him through, here's the process, here's how it goes. Here's some of the things you just have to have as expectations. In a perfect world, this is how quickly it goes. If there's other issues and we can't determine what those are until we get there, type of situation.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Because, on any given day and much like, the earlier guest, that is what seemingly seems as simple as bankruptcy, every case is unique and different and has its own issues.
Right. One of my paralegal jobs, I worked for 2 attorneys that represented Chapter 7 bankruptcy trustees. They're now both Chapter 7 bankruptcy trustees. So I was a trustee assistant for several years.
Okay.
And like you said, every case is different. It's rarely an open and shut case. We look into everything. So if anything's not disclosed on the schedules or anything like that, it'll delay everything.
Right. And that becomes the thing for people to understand, is that you gain nothing by thinking you're going to beat the system, because the reality is you're not, and you shouldn't, just, lay it all out there. Here's what it is. I know we've seen deals where, somebody said, well, yeah, I own this boat, but it's worth nothing. Well, and when you're going through bankruptcy, that's not necessarily your decision to determine.
Right.
You have to put it in there, list it. And if it is worth nothing and the trustee determines that, okay.
Right.
But if you don't list it, now it seems to be that opening up that can of worms that you don't want to get into, type of thing.
Right. Because I've seen the wheels of the trustee mind turning.
Sure.
Well, they didn't list that and they have it. So what is it really worth? And
Right.
then, if you just put it down and looked up a value and it was $400, they'll probably look past it. Maybe they'll have an auctioneer come out and appraise it on their own, maybe.
Right.
But if you don't put it, then that's going to open up, what else are they hiding?
Sure.
So
no question.
Just be honest, list everything. I've heard people say, well, I have that, but it's not part of the bankruptcy.
Right.
Well, it is.
Yes.
You have to list it,
Right.
Whether you want to turn it over or whether it's a valuable asset to your creditors is one thing, but it is property of the bankruptcy. It has to be part of the bankruptcy if it's yours.
That's what you have to understand in that process. Why don't you go ahead and give out your contact information, Becky? We'll take a short break and then we'll come back and finish up the show here.
Sure. My phone number is 602-448-0202. My website is www.legaldocsmadesimple.com. And my email address is legaldocsmadesimple@gmail.com.
Excellent. Well, we are going to take a break here and we'll be right back after these messages.
Thank you.
Everyone's going to need an attorney at some point in their life. I'm no different. Hey everyone, it's James from Vets On. Whether it was my last will and testament before deployment or my ongoing custody battle for my children during my divorce, I needed help, so I lawyered up. If you need help, I urge you to contact Capstrom Law Firm. Capstrom Law Firm in Springfield, Missouri services clients throughout the state in criminal law, personal injury, and family law. With over 13 years practicing law, Tom Capstrom understands both law and court procedures and how stressful they can be. Let Tom Capstrom Law Firm and his dedicated staff take the stress and worry out of a difficult situation by calling him today. We feel so strong about the work that Tom and his staff are doing that he'll be a monthly guest on the show. Tom is a veteran and a listener, for God's sake, so you know the guy is solid and will fight for you. Give Tom a call today by calling 864-0552 or email Tom at capstromlaw.com. And don't forget to tell him that Vets On sent you.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertising.
Breaker, 19. How about that bandit? You got some ears on, son?
Have you ever wanted to be a truck driver? If so, pay attention. If not, pay attention anyway. Southwest Truck Driver Training offers everything you need to get started. You can get hired before you begin training. They've got GI Bill approved training facilities, day, night, or weekend programs to fit your busy schedule. And if you have any questions, no sweat. They've got veteran supportive campuses with veterans on staff to serve you. And on top of that, they have lifetime job placement assistance. Put the pedal to the metal. Call Southwest Truck Driver Training today.
If you or someone you know is looking for a new job or career, you need to visit the pros. National Career Fairs at ncfairs.com. National Career Fairs hosts over 300 career fairs a year nationwide. The events are free and give you the perfect chance to meet some of the top employers in your area face-to-face. To find the nearest career fair to you, visit ncfairs.com. Again, that's ncfairs.com. What are you waiting for?
Would you like to own a thriving business and help employ local veterans? The Vetraplex Handyman Construction and Landscape business is the opportunity you've been waiting for. The Vetraplex is your gateway to an affordable startup business with 0% financing for qualifying owners. By owning a Vetraplex franchise, you will be hiring veterans, providing them both income and opportunity, while at the same time providing your customers a way to say, thank you for your service to our nation's veterans. For more information, visit vetraplex.org. Again, that's vetraplex.org or call 928-284-2022.
You're listening to ESQ Resource Radio on the Vets On Media Network.
Well, welcome back to the ESQ Resource Radio Show, and our guest is Becky Botchen. And boy, Becky, this is just great stuff because, as we were talking in the break, that so many folks in this situation, as even attorneys come back and say, gosh, Frank, thanks for referring these people, but they have no money. Well, that's why they're in their situation. They don't have any money.
Right.
Well, I charge $300 to do a consult. And I get all that. I mean, and if you can get it, great. If you want to work with these folks, that's your prerogative. But I think having another option for people, because that's what we always stress to people, is you owe it to yourself in the situation that you're in to find out, not from me what all your options are, but from yourself, right. And then make your decision based on your needs, not me needing to get a client signed up or a bankruptcy attorney needing to get a client, but what meets your needs. That's what you owe to yourself.
Exactly.
And a lot of times they and again, I think as consumers, a lot of people just take care of it, handle it. And we always tell them that's not that simple, because we don't want 6 months from now, you thinking, gosh, why didn't I just file bankruptcy versus doing this?
Right.
That's not good for anybody in
right.
those situations. And I think this becomes a nice alternative. Now, are all the documents that you prepare available for the person online for them to get that information?
Everything's available on the bankruptcy court.
Okay.
The azb.uscourts.gov
right.
has a plethora of information. It's really Arizona is a very pro se state,
right.
Which means that they understand that people represent themselves.
Right.
So it's really set up. They have many frequently asked questions. They have all of the forms there. Again, like I said, not to encourage or discourage anyone from looking at it. Of course, look at it.
Sure. See
if you can do it yourself. But they are overwhelming when you look at them because there's just so much.
Well,
but look and educate yourself.
Sure. And the real key to that is going through this process, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
It's just like you couldn't go online and start doing your own dental work because there's a YouTube video for it.
Right. WebMD.
Right. Then, yeah. That you're doing all that stuff. So again, having somebody like yourself can, and again, you're not advocating or giving legal advice. You're just helping them make sure here's how this thing gets set up. Here's the information you need. Here's how you correctly fill out these documents, or we'll fill out the documents for you correctly, and here's how you present them.
Right. I'm pretty much in the middle between doing it yourself and having an attorney that'll give you legal advice.
Right.
If you want that middle section, go to a legal document preparer such as myself.
Right. And that becomes, just very good. And then just like I said, from the estate planning piece of it, it becomes a lot easier in updating information and getting that stuff done. But the real key is initially getting all that information in one place, getting it correct, and then making sure that when you need to update it, you get it updated in a timely manner. So it's not
right. Take the burden off your family.
Right. And it's not, it's cost effective in having a document preparer help you with that from that standpoint.
Right.
So even if somebody had already had a will in place and they went to attorney and paid a lot of money, but now they need to update it, can you help them in updating it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So that just becomes, again, another way to look at that, not to take business away from people. And, as I always look at things, business is always about relationships, especially when it becomes personal, and bankruptcy and estate planning are very personal for everybody.
Right.
So it's building those, those relationships with people that you trust, and you really get a sense that they're advocating on your behalf, not necessarily their own behalf.
Right.
But you have the knowledge to be able to say, look, this is what needs to happen. This is what you need to reveal and put down.
Right.
Because again, as I tell people, bankruptcy fraud's not a place you want to go to.
No, it absolutely is not.
that is not going to be a pretty outcome for anybody in that situation. And even if you didn't do it, it's just the gut-wrenching process of what you've gone through in respect to those
right.
things.
And if you've already filed bankruptcy, why would you want to lose your discharge?
Right.
The ultimate goal of a bankruptcy is to get a discharge.
Right.
So that your debt is wiped away, or
Right.
you're unsecured anyway.
Right.
And what's the point if you?
Well,
can't
yeah,
do
no
that?
question. And like I say, you're not going to beat the system, and you're not going to, as people say, well, can I, sell my car to my daughter, and that way she's got a car, and we don't have to worry about this. And again, those circumstances are there, but there's also very clear guidelines to how that happens. And it's
Right.
And nobody ever prepares 2 years prior for, gosh, if these stupid decisions don't pan out, what am I going to do? It's at the moment. It's once you're at that point where you're looking to file bankruptcy, you can't just move that money around and put it somewhere else. It just doesn't
Right.
work that way.
That's what's called a preference.
Right. Right. So, and again, I think based on your background of working with a law firm and being a paralegal gives you some great insight. And then just the way you represent yourself and you handle people becomes a real key to that, because, as we talk to people all that time in that financial distress, they really just need somebody that has some empathy for their situation,
Right.
is not looking at them as you're a loser, because you're not. It's reality. I mean, I always tell people, like him or not, you look at a guy like a Donald Trump, he makes it easy, man. As soon as he decides he's had enough, and he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And guess who goes with him? Every one of those banks.
Right.
And that's what's going to be scary for you as you process through the bankruptcy. All those same banks are going to give you another opportunity.
Right.
They're undiscriminating from who you are and what you've done, because they're all about money. That's the only color of anything they see is money.
Right.
They don't care what you did in the past, how you did it. It just gives them justification to say, too bad for you that you filed bankruptcy, but we'll still give you some money. We're just going to charge you a higher rate.
Right. That money will just cost more money.
Right.
for
And,
you.
and that's your only, and then you're on good behavior, you get back, then they loosen it up and work with you from that standpoint.
Right.
But yeah, we don't encourage repeat offenders in our world, because it's just
No.
crazy that you don't want to have to do that. So give us some insights on how long does the process take as far as them meeting with you? Is it an hour consultation, or
It depends on the situation.
Okay.
Sometimes again, if we've talked on the phone and you would prefer that I email you the questionnaire, when we meet, it could be anywhere from a half hour to an hour. If it's our first time meeting, it'll probably be a little over an hour.
Right.
It just completely depends on the person and the situation.
And you said do you generally go to them in that situation, or they come meet with you?
I can meet with them, or we can meet at a Starbucks in between.
Okay. But you try to make it as comfortable for them as possible and laying it out.
Right. And my business name is Legal Documents Made Simple. And I want it to be as simple of a process and as comforting and less stressful as possible.
No question.
To get this done. So yeah, we'll meet the first time to get all the information together, half hour to 2 hours, depending. Then we'll generally speak on the phone or by email if I have any questions. And then I'll let you know when the documents are ready and we'll get together. I'll generally send you a draft so that you make sure that, oh, I forgot to give you this, or I got this other bill in the mail, or anything like that. And then we'll get together and sign it. And then they can take it at their leisure to the bankruptcy court and file it. Do you want me to go out into the process of after?
Sure.
Okay. When you file for bankruptcy, what's called a 341A meeting is set, and that's about 6 to 7 weeks after. And you'll be assigned a Chapter 7 trustee that, again, will be at the 341A meeting. Within 2 weeks, you'll get a letter from the trustee requesting information. It'll generally be the information that you've already provided to me that I've returned to you. So it shouldn't be too hard to get it. Pay stubs, bank statements, sometimes vehicle information, home information, just a general overview of your financial situation. And then you'll meet with the 341 meeting. The trustee will ask you questions. They'll put you under oath. Ask if you've lived in Arizona for long enough, if you filed for bankruptcy, if they need to clarify any issues. And then it's generally as simple as that.
Right.
And then you go on your way, and about, I think 60 days after that, you can get your discharge.
Okay. But when you go to that 341 hearing, don't wear your Rolex and your diamonds and.
Right. Specifically, most trustees actually do ask to see that. Can I look at your wedding ring?
Sure.
Wear your wedding ring.
Right.
Because that's another
no
trigger.
question that you're hiding something. You're right. But don't overdo it. Don't dress to impress in that room from that standpoint.
Right. The trustee has asked, are those earrings real?
Right.
To which the women answered, if they were real, I would have pawned them months ago.
Right. Right.
So.
But again, it's those things you prepare yourself for, and saying, hey, it's like I know an attorney that he was in court and had the client on the stand, and it wasn't a bankruptcy hearing, but it was he owed some money to somebody, and he said he didn't have the money. And the attorney says, hey, can I take a look at that watch? And the guy says, sure. And he hands it to him. Says, thank you very much. And now that the guy owns that watch. And,
right.
And it's just crazy but you just have to be, again, using some common sense and saying, hey, this is what I'm here for, representing myself. And it can be very intimidating.
Yes.
And then is there a follow-up once they get done with their 341 hearing? Do they call you and say, hey, we're done, we got through it? Or
once they file their paperwork, you generally don't need to come back to me.
Okay.
Our contract's fulfilled after if they want to call me and tell me, I'm not going to hang up the phone on them.
No, I get that. I guess just
the
maybe for your standpoint of just having them, give you a follow-up call and maybe a testimonial, because that's, hey, they got through it. Appreciate what you've done. Hey, would you be willing to put that on my website?
Oh, I would love a testimonial. I love to know, that I did something right.
Right.
And at the same time, if they ran into a problem, I need to know that as well,
No
because
question.
I don't want to do that again.
Right. If they felt that, gosh, here was something that was somewhat unexpected and helps you prepare the next person, maybe that.
Right.
Because I know in today's world, a lot of times, as dealing with estate planning attorneys and even bankruptcy attorneys, that one of the areas that trustees are really looking at is like a person has a gun collection, or even just a gun, that becomes a valuable asset
Right.
to the estate.
Right.
And it's probably always been there, but just it's been highlighted in today's economy. And those guns are not just $100 worth of a gun. It could be
Right.
several $100s, and
Right.
becomes
And
an issue.
there is an exemption. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I believe each debtor, when you file, is allowed one gun up to a certain amount.
Right.
And I don't know that amount, but you can keep them. But if you have more, you may need to provide information on that gun
Right.
to the trustee to see if it's worth their time
Sure.
of selling it, and that they can then provide assets to your creditors.
Sure. But it becomes one of those things that is something that the bankruptcy attorney is saying that the trustees are really starting to take a look at. When they see that you have a gun,
Right.
they sort of ask, or not sort of, but they then start asking a little more inquisitive questions about,
Right.
okay, you got one gun, do you have any other guns? And well, yeah, I got this gun collection my dad gave me, and ding, ding, really?
Right. They will probably value that and
Right.
get evaluation
Right.
on it.
And it just becomes one of
Right.
those unintended consequences that you weren't thinking about it. You didn't think to ask or to share that. And the trustee just asked the one arbitrary question, and
Right.
you answered honestly, and now are the consequences. And
Right.
it's unfortunate at times. And once you're at that point, it's not, you can't take it back. You can't-
Right. But still answer honestly.
Right. No question. And that's really the key to it is like I said, you're not going to fraud the bankruptcy court, or if you do, the consequences aren't worth your while.
No, they're not.
Because it's craziness. Why don't you go ahead and give out your contact information, and we'll wrap things up here. Really want to thank you for being a guest today.
Thank you. My website is legaldocsmadesimple.com. My email address is legaldocsmadesimple@gmail.com. And my phone number is 602-448-0202.
Excellent. Well, if you're out there and you have some questions, and again, it may be a great alternative for you in working with Becky and having her prepare the documents for you, and then you taking it through the process. So again, I think it's all about options, and the more information you have, the better choices you will make.
Exactly.
So, all right. Well, thank you very much for being a guest today.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
Can you see by the